Modern ethnicities. The English people are an ethnic group and a nation native to England, who speak the English language of the Germanic language family and share a common history and culture. The English identity is of early medieval origin. When they were known in Old English as the Angles Sin, their ethnonym is derived from the Angles, one of the Germanic peoples who migrated to Great Britain around the 5th century AD. England is the largest and most populous country of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. The English largely descend from two main historical population groups, the Germanic tribes who settled in southern Britain following the withdrawal of the Romans, and the partially Romanized Britons who had been living there already, collectively known as the Anglo-Saxons. They founded what was to become the Kingdom of England by the early 10th century, in response to the invasion and minor settlement of Danes beginning in the late 9th century. This was followed by the Norman conquest and limited settlement of Anglo-Normans in England in the latter 11th century. In the Acts of Union 1707, the Kingdom of England and the Kingdom of Scotland merged to become the Kingdom of Great Britain. Over the years, English customs and identity have become fairly closely aligned with British customs and identity. In general, England itself has no devolved government. The 1990s witnessed a rise in English self-consciousness. This is linked to the expressions of national self-awareness of the other British nations of Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland, which take their most solid form in the new devolved political arrangements within the United Kingdom, and the waning of a shared British national identity with the growing distance between the end of the British Empire and the present. Many recent immigrants to England have assumed a solely British identity, while others have developed dual or mixed identities. Use of the word English to describe Britons from ethnic minorities in England is complicated by most non-white people in England identifying as British rather than English. In their 2004 annual population survey, the Office for National Statistics compared the ethnic identities of British people with their perceived national identity. They found that while 58% of white people in England described their nationality as English, the vast majority of non-white people called themselves British. It is unclear how many British people consider themselves English. The words English and British may be used interchangeably, especially outside the UK. In his study of English identity, Krishan Kumar describes a common slip of the tongue in which people say English, I mean British. He notes that this slip is normally made only by the English themselves and by foreigners. Non-English members of the United Kingdom rarely say British when they mean English. Kumar suggests that although this blurring is a sign of England's dominant position with the UK, it is also problematic for the English when it comes to conceiving of their national identity. It tells of the difficulty that most English people have of distinguishing themselves in a collective way from the other inhabitants of the British Isles. In 1965, the historian J. P. Taylor wrote, when the Oxford History of England was launched a generation ago, England was still an all-embracing word. It meant indiscriminately England and Wales, Great Britain, the United Kingdom, and even the British Empire. Foreigners used it as the name of a great power and indeed continue to do so. Born a law, by origin a Scotch-Canadian, was not ashamed to describe himself as Prime Minister of England. Now terms have become more rigorous. The use of England, except for a geographic area, brings protests, especially from the Scotch. However, although Taylor believed this blurring effect was dying out, in his book The Isles, Norman Davies lists numerous examples in history books of British still being used to mean English and vice versa. In December 2010, Matthew Paris in The Spectator, analyzing the use of English over British, argued that English identity, rather than growing, had existed all along but has recently been unmasked from behind a veneer of Britishness. Recent genetic studies have suggested that Britain's Neolithic population was largely replaced by a population from North Continental Europe characterized by the bell beaker culture around 1200 BC. Associated with the Yamnaya people from the Pontic-Caspian steppe. This population lacked genetic affinity to other bell-beaker populations, such as the Iberian bell-beakers, but appeared to be an offshoot of the corded ware single-grave people. It is currently unknown whether these beaker peoples went on to develop Celtic languages in the British Isles, or whether later Celtic migrations introduced Celtic languages to Britain. The close genetic affinity of these beaker people to corn